Hello everyone, SilverContrail here, part of Team Drive Trigger. I haven't uploaded anything in a while, but I've wanted to talk about this for quite a bit actually, and I've been thinking about it pretty much all day when I should be thinking about my trigonometry homework. But I just can't get this out of my mind today, and I'm not sure why it is that it's been today so very focused on it. Watching the results of YCS Rhode Island, I've been thinking lately about a lot of things, and maybe it's because I'm actually going to be going to a locals this weekend, so for once be able to play Dragunity, and I was thinking to myself what else I can do to make the deck better. And then I remembered that Gusto Griff, or Gusto Griffin, as it is in the TCG now, uh, it isn't out yet, but it is out in. There is a card in English for it. It's not legal to play because Hidden Arsenal 7 isn't out yet, but the Dual Terminal 7 sets are out, along with Gusto Emerald. If you want to pick that up, it's on eBay. Griffin is also on eBay. It's a common in the set, and this card has a very, very, very big impact on Dragunity decks going into the future. So when I say that, I mean this card alone is the next step in the evolution of the Dragunity deck, and it will depend, of course, on what the set after Cosmo Blazar is. If that set is a win set and we could get a lot of really good support, then maybe there's something else that we'll be running. As it stands, I think Gusto Griffin, the Gusto engine, will be what most players are running when they run Dragunity. I just think it's that good. Um, so that said, obviously need to do some explaining. What is Gusto Griff? What's going on here? So it's a level 2 wind wing beast with weak stats, but it's the effect that we're playing, of course. If the card is sent from the hand to the graveyard, you can special summon one Gusto monster from your deck, and we can only use the effect of Griffin once per turn, which is irrelevant because we're only going to use it once per turn. I suppose you could use, I don't know, you could use it more than once, but it's probably not going to happen, and you probably wouldn't want to anyways. Um, so it cannot miss timing. There's a specific ruling on that. Of course, it's a if you can, so can't miss the timing. And we can special summon one Gusto monster. So what's important is that there aren't any conditions on what Gusto monster we're special summoning. If we want to get out a weak little P1 card, like if we want to get just like another level 2 Gusto monster or a level 1 Gusto monster, we certainly can. Or we can go ahead and grab a level 6 Gusto monster with 2000 attack that grabs Gusto back from the graveyard. We'll get to that in a bit. It can grab itself, so it can grab basically every Gusto monster that you put in your main deck, I believe. I don't think any of them specifically say that they can't be special summoned. So, Gusto Griffin, already pretty good. If you discard it, you can search out and special summon a Gusto monster, so it's a really good recruiter. That said, it's pretty much worthless if we don't have good ways to discard it. Thankfully, in Dragunity, we have a lot of ways to discard cards. So, Gusto Griffin is a scent specific or specified scent, which means that scent includes discarding as well. So you can either send it with the effect of a card like 1 for 1, or you can discard it with the effect of Dragon Ravine or Dragunity Nightguard Arc, which will get to. So basically, what we need to focus on is what exactly do we grab with Griffin? What is worthwhile to get? There's a couple of cards. A lot of people talk about getting Cam, which is kind of neat. It's basically Gusto Emerald in a smaller monster form. You shuffle 2 Gusto monsters from your deck into your graveyard, and then you draw one, and you can use this effect once per turn. So 1700 attack, really weak, very poor stats. I mean, 1700 isn't, I mean, it's certainly not like 1400 or 1600 or anything like that, but it's not really that great. It's pretty much the second worst attack stat that it could have. At any rate, the +1 draw is pretty nice. If you discard a Griffin, special summon it, then hey, there you go. You got one target in there, so there's a good chance you have a second target in there. Then you can draw your one card, which is kind of cool. If you need the one draw. But if you're summoning this, you're doing it for one of two reasons. First of all, you're going to sync with it. Second of all, you're going to exceed with it. Or third, you needed to feel some effect or feel some kind of cost. Like Spiritual Wind Art Mayabi, or Mayabi. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. And that's kind of the theme with these. If you're not using it for its effect, then you're using it to pay a cost or to exceed or synchro. So Condor doesn't really do a whole lot. It'll probably never get its effect. Not really worth. Eagle is basically a recruiter. If it's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, it replaces itself with a level 4 or lower non-tuner Gusto monster from the deck. This card is at odds with Winda, which when it's destroyed by battle, specifically when it's destroyed by an opponent's attacking monster. So you can't ram it into an opponent's monster. You can special summon one Gusto tuner monster from your deck. So one searches out tuners, one searches out not. These aren't really good targets. They don't really do anything for us. If you're discarding Griff, we're trying to get an aggressive play off. And besides, if we're discarding Griff, we can grab whatever these guys are grabbing anyways. It's not really important. Falco, not really interested with this guy at all. When this face-up card in the field is sent to the graveyard, expect battle. He's a win, so I believe he misses the timing. I could be wrong. If he doesn't miss the timing, he's kind of cool because we can sync with him, but I'm pretty sure he does miss the timing. And he's a tuner. So, and that's kind of the same thing with a lot of these cards, that they're not... Some of them are okay, but the only one that I'm specifically interested in... I think Reese is the one that... Pretty much the only one that I look at besides Cam and Windar, I'll get to in a second. Reese, once per turn you can return one card from your hand to the bottom of your deck, and then you target one monster you control, and one monster your opponent controls, one face-up Gusto you control, and then you switch control. So it's basically a psychic jumper for the deck, and it can be special summoned straight away with Griffin. Unfortunately, it's level 5, so it can be tough to get out immediately. But there's a YouTube video online I was watching today where a guy summoned this, and then he switched out one of his Gusto monsters for an opponent Xian, and I was like, wow, that's kind of good. So it's kind of techy, but yeah, if you can support it, maybe it's worthwhile. I'm not sure. Being level 5 actually hurts my uses for it, but hey, it could happen. And then the other ones, in terms of level, they're kind of hard to play. Maybe Thunderbolt. But he's, again, you probably would run Cam, but Cam wants you to run more than just the Griffs. So there's some questions there. And then the last card we have is Windar. So Windar is a 2000 attacker, level 6. Well, when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you special summon one level 3 or lower Gusto monster from your graveyard in face-up defense position. So you run over their Ryo, because it's got 2000, and you special summon back the Griffin that you discarded to special summon him in the first place. So that's pretty neat. You basically, 1-for-1 exchange to get him out. And then, well, yeah, it's 1-for-1 to basically get him out because you pay the cost. And then, you get the +1 off of his effect. Admittedly, getting back a Griffin on the field doesn't really do a whole lot for you unless you're tributing him for like Icarus Attack or Spiritual Wind Art. I can't really see a whole lot of applications with that, but it's something. Maybe you can make a play with it. And that brings us to a couple of the other cards in here, which I'll mention before we switch over to the Dragunity side of things. Contact with Gusto is kind of cool. It's basically a quill pen, but it destroys, or actually, excuse me, it shuffles back into the deck. And then, it destroys the opponent's card. So basically, instead of being a quill pen, which returns the card to the hand, it destroys that target card, which is a little bit more useful against spells, traps, and other resummonable monsters. But quill pen is usually going to be the better choice, usually. But not to say that Contact with Gusto is completely useless. The only thing I do really like about quill pen is that it actually kills a lot of things that Legionnaire and Acus can't stop. So, like Legionnaire Acus pops face-up monsters, back row, things that can be susceptible to destruction. Quill Pen actually kills things that are resistant to that, like Adrius, or Zen Mains, or Gachi Gachi. Xyz monsters, Synchro monsters, stuff like Stardust Dragon. You can kick them back to the extra deck, or even stuff against like the Shining, so you don't have to worry about that effect resolving. So I think that's a good reason to run Quill Pen instead of Contact with Gusto. Plus, Quill Pen is generic for wins, and the other card we need specifically Gustos. But anyways, back to Windar. So Windar's a level 6, and that's basically the reason we're going to run him. And we'll go ahead and jump over to the deck that I have. Here it is, called Xyz Dragunity. So what this really simply is a deck that focuses on utilizing, as much as possible, Gusto Griffin, Windar, and the rest of the Dragunity engine, and specifically the Autumn plays that are now viable, to make some really crazy stuff go on. So the Gusto engine does basically two things. Makes the deck a little bit stronger against like first turn Ryo, or like a first turn setup that you need to bait cards away from, and as well as against Effect Veiler and a few other things that makes it. It does enhance consistency a little bit. And the second thing that it does is it gives you more options in terms of what you're going to be able to make in a play. I'll just sum this up in one sentence, and maybe this will kind of get your mind thinking and get you really interested about this. The Gusto engine allows you to turn a single Dux play, which normally results in either a generic level 6 or a generic level 8 synchro, into any generic rank 6 Xyz monster, including Strike Bouncer, Force Focus, or the sword guy, the super rare from Return of the Duelist. So yeah, well, you can make one card rank 6 summons now with this engine, and I'll explain that in a moment. Basically, but first I really want to focus on what exactly the plays are here. So there are two ways to discard Griffin, assuming we're not running discard traps, which you certainly can't. Things like Phoenix Wing, Divine Wrath, those are cards that I've been trying to look at for a while, and they're actually kind of playable here. But most noticeably, you have Dragon Ravine and Dragunity Night Guide Arg. So Dragon Ravine obviously has the two effects, which you discard and then you either add a Dragunity or you send a Dragon monster. So in either case, when you discard Griffin, you're going to get your either another Griffin, or you special summon Windar. Both of which are very good plays. Because you're either getting a free 2000 attacker, which is just kind of ridiculous, or you're getting just a kind of a thing to float on the field, and doesn't really... I guess Griffin into Griffin is probably the weaker play. But Griffin into Windar is definitely something the opponent's going to have to worry about. First turn, Griffin, Windar, not even caring about what you added, it doesn't even matter. That kind of a play is really impressive because it lets you put pressure on the field, and you haven't even normal summoned yet, which is kind of scary. If you're putting pressure on the field with Dragunity before you normal summon, you know something's up. You're going to have a lot of pressure because your opponent, especially if they know what you're running beforehand, I mean, they're holding onto things like Effect Veiler and Bottomless Trap Hole specifically, or like Deep Prison or something, specifically to deal with your play that they know you're going into, which is going to be either like Dux Phalanx or your Legionnaire Actus or your Legionnaire Phalanx, whatever. And then you put a 2000 attacker on the board, and they're like, oh, hello, what are you doing here? Against first turn Ryo, you're going to activate Ravine, and you're going to use its second effect, discard Griffin, and then send your whatever. Usually, like if I have like a Legionnaire in hand, I'll definitely send an Actus so that I can go Legionnaire Actus, pop. But even more importantly, when I do this, I can grab a Windar, which is a 2000 attacker, which can get over Ryo. And that's a very big deal, because when you put that on the field, they're going to go, okay, I've got, like if it's Ryo and 2 back row, they're going to have to use something on it. And they can't use Ryo's effect. And they're going to either have to like bottomless it, which means that they're not be able to stop a Dux play or something, or they're going to have to use a Deep Prison on it when it attacks, or use something else, and then next turn you go into your, or like they can certainly warning it as well, but now they have to be worried about what else you have in your hand. So you can basically drop 2 cards out of their hand right away and kind of start deconstructing their field before they have a chance to really go after you. And certainly first turn Ryo is one of the worst things you can go up against. And when I say, Ryo with 2 set back row with maybe Effect Veiler in hand, a lot of times that's going to be game. That is extremely hard to play around. And stuff like Dark Hole and Book of Moon, I main deck those cards specifically to deal with those setups. Or stuff like Phoenix Chain, Dimensional Prison, whatnot. I'm always looking to try to get past that setup. So what Griff does, so what the Griff Windar engine lets you do is hopefully push past first turn Rios or first turn a lot of things, really, and let you just kind of push past them because you're going to be able to put some pressure on the board right away. Even stuff like a set Girgia armor and like a back row or something. Now you have your Windar to deal with it, and if the Windar doesn't work out, well, you can make like a Scrap Dragon and pop it, or you can make a Stardust Dragon, or you can whatever. Or you can do a lot of other fancy shenanigans, which I'll mention now. So I've been talking so far about using Dragon Ravine with it, and there's one last combo you can do, which involves the Autumn Loops, which I've talked about before. Basically, Dragon Ravine, you get your ducks out. If you have Mistiltian or Zephyros, you can make Autumn by making 2 Vajrayanas. Well, you can also make Autumn by making a Gaidarg and a Vajrayana, or you can do some other fancy things. Because Sage of Gusto Windar is a level 6, we can help make our Xyz plays with that. The only problem is, of course, we can't actually make Autumn with it, because Autumn requires 2 dragons. So instead what we use this for is to make a final Xyz or a final Synchro Summon with it. Excuse me. So basically, once you make the Gaidarg, you can send a Griffin to the graveyard and get your Sage of Gusto. There are certain combos, certain configurations where you're going to be able to end with Stardust Dragon, a full attack, Red Eyes Darkness Metal, and a Strike Bouncer, which will end the game right there. And it'll only cost you maybe 2 cards plus Ravine, so you'll probably have like 2 to 3 cards in hand still, depending on like if you Typhooned or whatever to get your playthrough. That's really potent. Even if you don't OTK, even if you just end with that and you don't attack, that's tough to get by because they have to crack your setup next turn. If they like somehow get Stardust in the graveyard but they don't destroy it, you can of course special summon it. Next turn you're going to be able to get a free search. They better have a lot of stuff if they want to get by you. But perhaps the most interesting play you can make, and I've saved this for last, is Dux Phalanx equaling Strike Bouncer or any other level 6 or any other rank 6 Xyz monster on its own with no setup. Just all you need is the Dux Phalanx combo, which of course happens multiple times per game, very easily searchable and very frequent. Without any additional cards in hand or in the graveyard, we can turn that into a Strike Bouncer. How? It's really simple. Summon Dux, equip Phalanx, special summon Phalanx, Synchro Summon Gaidarg. Gaidarg's effect to add Gusto Griffin from your hand, or from your deck to your hand, and then you send it from your hand to the graveyard per Gaidarg's effect, excuse me. And then you special summon Windar. So now our field is Windar plus Gaidarg, 2 level 6. We Xyz summon into Bouncer. Unfortunately, we cannot Xyz into Autumn, but we can make Bouncer instead, or Force Focus if that's more your style, or another generic rank 6 whenever we get those. It's hard to stress how good that is. From the perspective of someone who's been playing Dragunity for a long time, searchable monster effect negation is so important to this deck. It's something that I've always thought that a cool Dragunity card would be like a level 5 that you can make with Legionnaire Phalanx that could somehow like negate effects maybe. Like I had this idea for a custom card, and that's the only custom card I've ever thought for Dragunity of. Like it's the only thing that I've ever thought, well, Dragunity really needs this. And what it needs is a card that can basically negate effects, but it's searchable. Effect Veiler, Phoenix Chain, they're nice, but I can't grab them from the deck. I can't toolbox into them. I can do that now with Griffin, because I can make effectively a Strike Bouncer or a Force Focus whenever I need to. As long as I have the Dux Phalanx play, I can just make them. And it's perfectly fine. It's easy to do, costs me nothing. It's a 1 card rank 6. What other decks can do this? Really the only... I can open up with Strike Bouncer and set back row. That's crazy. Like I can almost go and start playing Safe Zone now, because I can go first turn Strike Bouncer with Safe Zone. And if I lose Strike Bouncer, I go, whatever. I can just play another one next turn and another one the turn after. This is all in addition, of course, to my Legionnaire plays, to my Autumn very explosive plays, to my level 5 synchros, to all the other things that I can do, because I can make so many cards in the extra deck now. I have this randomly teched in here, Gusto Phoenix. Maybe it'll happen, I don't know. You can definitely pick a Stardust Dragon to attack twice for 5,000, or pick a Vajrayana that's used its effect to attack twice for 70. I think it's 76. It's 38 plus 38. So that's, needless to say, a lot of damage, and you can do this with... I'm actually not sure how I would get this. I don't think this will happen too often, so I'll probably pull this out. I think I'd have to run another Gusto card. I'm not really sure that play goes off. But yeah, needless to say, like, this deck is going places. It really is. It is an incredible deck once you get all the pieces together, once the Gusto engine starts to roll. Because there really aren't any consistency issues with here, except for one issue. It makes you a little bit more reliant on Ravine. To run these cards, I have to scrap things like Bottomless Trap Hole or Mirror Force or something that would stall for time, that would help me deal with threats on the field. Even stuff maybe like Cyber Dragon, or these are definitely cards that could fulfill side deck slots. And now I'm very, very, very cramped for space, and I'm running quite a few monsters in here, and that's not something I want to do. I'm getting a message. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we can make it more consistent. Maybe switch off to 2 Griffin and like 1 Windar. Could potentially be a thing with like Colpen or something. But we'll have to see. Spiritual Windar, might be worthwhile. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and definitely be thinking about Griffin. I think it's a really good card, and yeah, I'm trying to look for some copies myself. But yeah, until next time then.